Chapter 6 of The Wrong Box. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For further information or to volunteer, please go to LibriVox.org. Reading by Andy Minter. The Wrong Box by Robert Louis Stevenson and Lloyd Osborne. Chapter 6. The Tribulations of Morris. Part the First. As the hansom span through the streets of London, Morris sought to rally the forces of his mind. The water butt with the dead body had miscarried, and it was essential to recover it. So much was clear, and if by some blessed good fortune it was still at the station, all might be well. If it had been sent out, however, if it were already in the hands of some wrong person, matters looked more ominous. People who receive unexplained packages are usually keen to have them open. The example of Miss Hazeltine, whom he cursed again, was there to remind him of the circumstances, and if any one had opened the water butt, "Oh, Lord!" cried Morris at the thought, and carried his hand to his damp forehead. The private conception of any breach of law is apt to be inspiriting, for the scheme, while yet inchoate, wears dashing and attractive colours. Not so in the least that part of the criminal's later reflections which deal with the police. That useful corps, as Morris now began to think, had scarcely been kept sufficiently in view when he embarked upon his enterprise. "I must play devilish close," he reflected, and he was aware of an exquisite thrill of fear in the region of the spine. "Main line or loop?" inquired the cabman through the scuttle. "Main line," replied Morris, and mentally decided that the man should have his shilling after all. It would be madness to attract attention, thought he, but what this thing will cost me, first and last, begins to be a nightmare. He passed through the booking office and wandered disconsolately on the platform. It was a breathing space in the day's traffic. There were few people there, and these, for the most part, quiescent on the benches. Morris seemed to attract no remark, which was a good thing, but on the other hand he was making no progress in his quest. Something must be done, something must be risked. Every passing instant only added to his dangers. Summoning all his courage, he stopped a porter, and asked him if he remembered receiving a barrel by the morning train. He was anxious to get information, for the barrel belonged to a friend. "It is a matter of some moment," he added, "for it contains specimens." "I was not here this morning, sir," responded the porter, somewhat reluctantly, "but I'll ask Bill. Do you recollect, Bill, to have got a barrel from Bournemouth this morning, containing specimens?" "I don't know about specimens," replied Bill, "but the party as received the barrel I mean raised a sight of trouble." "What's that?" cried Morris, in the agitation of the moment pressing a penny into the man's hand. "You see, sir, the barrel arrived at 1:30. No one claimed it till about 3, when a small, sickly looking gentleman, probably a curate, came up, and says he, 'Have you got anything for Pitman, or Willum Bent Pitman, if I recollect right?' 'I don't exactly know,' says I, 'but I rather fancy that barrel bears the name.' The little man went to the barrel, and seemed regular all took aback when he saw the address, and then he pitched into us for not having brought what he wanted. 'I don't give a damn what you want,' says I to him, 'but if you're Willum Bent Pitman, that's your barrel.'" "Well, and did he take it?" cried the breathless Morris. "Well, sir," returned Bill, "it appears it was a packing case he was after. The packing case came, that's sure enough, because it was about the biggest packing case ever I clapped eyes on. And this Pitman, he seemed a good deal cut up, and he had the superintendent out, and they got hold of the vanman, him as took the packing case. Well, sir," continued Bill with a smile, "I never see a man in such a state. Everybody about that van was mortal, by the horses. Some gentleman, as well as I could make out, had given the vanman a sov, and so that was where the trouble came in, you see." "But what did he say?" gasped Morris. "I don't know as he said much, sir," said Bill, "but he offered to fight this Pitman for a pot of beer.
He lost his book too, and the receipts, and his memory all as mortal as himself. Oh, they were all like," and Bill paused for a simile, "like lords. The superintendent sacked 'em on the spot." "Oh, come, but that's not so bad," said Morris, with a bursting sigh. "He couldn't tell where he took the packing case, then?" "Not he," said Bill, "nor yet nothing else." "And what did Pitman do?" asked Morris. "Ah, he went off with the barrel in the four wheeler, very trembling like," replied Bill. "I don't believe he's a gentleman as had good health." "Well, so the barrel's gone," said Morris, half to himself. "You may depend on that, sir," returned the porter. "But you had better see the superintendent." "Not in the least. It's of no account," said Morris. "It only contained specimens." And he walked hastily away. Ensconced once more in a hansom, he proceeded to reconsider his position. Suppose, he thought, suppose he should accept defeat and declare his uncle's death at once. He should lose the tontine, and with that the last hope of his £7,800. But, on the other hand, since the shilling to the hansom cabman, he had begun to see that crime was expensive in its course, and since the loss of the water butt, that it was uncertain in its consequences. Quietly at first, and then with growing heat, he reviewed the advantages of backing out. It involved a loss, but, come to think of it, no such great loss after all, only that of the tontine, which had always been a toss-up, which at bottom he had never really expected. He reminded himself of that eagerly. He congratulated himself upon his constant moderation. He had never really expected the tontine. He had never even very definitely hoped to recover his £7,800, and he had been hurried into the whole thing by Michael's obvious dishonesty. Yes, it would probably be better to draw back from this high-flying venture, settle back in the leather business. "Oh, good God!" cried Morris, bounding in the hansom like a jack-in-the-box. "I have not only not gained the tontine, I have lost the leather business." Such was the monstrous fact. He had no power to sign. He could not draw a cheque for 30 shillings. Until he could produce legal evidence of his uncle's death, he was a penniless outcast. And as soon as he produced it, he had lost the tontine. There was no hesitation on the part of Morris to drop the tontine like a hot chestnut, to concentrate all his forces on the leather business, and the rest of his small but legitimate inheritance was the decision of a single instant. And the next, the full extent of his calamity was suddenly disclosed to him. Declare his uncle's death? He couldn't. Since the body was lost, Joseph had, in a legal sense, become immortal. There was no created vehicle big enough to contain Morris and his woes. He paid the hansom off and walked on, he knew not whither. "I seem to have gone into this business with too much precipitation," he reflected, with a deadly sigh. "I fear it seems too ramified for a person of my powers of mind." And then a remark of his uncle's flashed into his memory. "If you want to think clearly, put it all down on paper." "Well, the old boy knew a thing or two," said Morris. "I will try, but I don't believe that paper was ever made that will clear my mind." He entered a place of public entertainment, ordered bread and cheese and writing materials, and sat down before them heavily. He tried the pen. It was an excellent pen. But what was he to write? "I have it!" cried Morris. "Robinson Crusoe in the double columns." He prepared his paper after that classic model, and began as follows: Bad. 1. I have lost my uncle's body. Good. 1. But then Pitman has found it. "Stop a bit," said Morris. "I am letting the spirit of antithesis run away with me. Let's start again. Bad. 1. I have lost my uncle's body. Good. 1. But then I no longer require to bury it. Bad. 2. I have lost the tontine. Good. 2. But I may still save that if Pitman disposes of the body, and if I can find a physician who will stick at nothing. Bad,